Hello, welcome to another episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Therapy with Chris Mize podcast. Holidays coming up. Are you ready? We should, Coach. Coach Chris Bowen is here with us. Of course, he's the producer for our show, but he's also going to be working with me today on this podcast. So,
I'm just happy to be here.
man, it's just great to have you. What a wingman to have Coach Chris here with me, to kind of help me through stuff. So Manchester Michael was going to be here. He is flying out of the country, so he had to pull out of the podcast on this one, but hopefully we'll have him back here soon. So, but again, Coach Chris, thank you for being on today. Guys, today we're going to talk about belt anxiety. And everybody's like, well, what is belt anxiety? Well, if you do jujitsu, you probably know what that is. It means when you start dreading that next belt promotion, you got your time in. Everybody's kind of saying, "Hey, man, when are you gonna get that purple belt? That blue belt's looking kind of old and ragged. How long are you gonna be a blue belt, man?" Everybody asking, you're like, they'll let me know, and I think it's probably pretty healthy when you start, being humble and thinking, "Hey, I'm not in any hurry." It's just I want to be good. I want to be well rounded and everything. So I think it's good to be humble and not be trying to push it too much. You know, um,
Isn't that a weird psychosis though? When you start anything, whether it's jujitsu or playing the guitar or whatever,
uh,
your initial thoughts were, you see that golden ring, if you
oh yeah,
will,
yeah,
of this is where I want to be and where I'm at, and then you get to going, and then you're like, I think I'm good. I feel good on certain days, but am I good enough to make to that next mark?
right. Well, one thing we say, and it's like sometimes you're the hammer and sometimes you're the nail. Uh, some days everything you do works, and then some days you couldn't catch a cold. It's just like ridiculous. I always think of this when people start saying, "Man, I've been a blue belt for whatever, or a purple belt, or for however many years, or whatever." And then I remember the story that Coach Eric Paulson, if I remember correctly, so don't hold it as actual fact because it's been a while, but he was training with Master Higgin, and they were doing a black belt exam, and so he asked Coach Eric, said, "Eric, go ahead and roll these guys and just see, And so he starts rolling the guy, and the guy's like, "Dude, is that a blue belt?" And he says, "Yeah." He said, "How long have you been a blue belt?" He said, uh, 17 years. And the guy was like, "Shit, I'm not tested." so,
17
but he just got to where he just didn't care. I mean, he was just like, because Eric does a lot of no gi,
Right.
but this was with the gi. But yeah, 17 years. So that was but the thing is, you could do a podcast on this.
Yeah.
Most people say, "How long you been a blue belt or a purple belt?" And they're like, 10 years, but they didn't train the whole 10 years.
Right.
They took some time off
Right.
versus Eric, who
Was
trained
still
every
training.
day.
Yeah. That's a huge difference.
It is a huge difference, which is a very, it's an anomaly, is what it is. Most people, when you do that, you're not going to be, especially to be at his level. It was just something that he just didn't, and Master Higgin, and then Master Higgin
Never pushed him.
never pushed him. And I think, went ahead and just, of course, moved him along. At that
Right.
point, it clicked one day.
Yeah, I wonder. How we get man, you spurred a thought. My next thought would be, did he go from blue belt to something more than just a purple belt next?
I think he did.
Yeah,
I think he probably went ahead and promoted him. But I mean, Coach Eric, like I said, he's when he's that blue belt and he's tapping out black belts. I mean,
Yeah,
it's kind of because he's a handful regardless.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
yeah, on his worst day. He's just a big powerful Viking dude.
Yeah.
To just but his jujitsu is amazing. But I think the bottom line is you got to trust your instructor. If your instructor's saying, "Hey, it's time. You need to be working on this, and I'm getting you ready for it." You more than have your time in, and you're performing well in class, and doing your stuff. I was listening to Faraz Zahabi a thing with him the other day. He was on one of Rogan's podcasts, and he was talking about how some jujitsu is kind of going the way of some of the other martial arts systems, and the belts are coming faster. You know.
It's funny that you mentioned that is because I can't remember the guy's name. He fights in the UFC, and I know that a lot of times fighters, we know fighters,
Right.
you gotta throw a little trash in the wind, so to speak, to
Mhm.
hype up yourself for the next fight and stuff like that. And he made a good and I'm gonna go ahead and jump out there and say it. He made a good comment, and I'd like to get your take on this because it really goes towards belt promotion anxiety. Is his take, his own personal opinion, not perceived as mine per se, but he says that belting system has become like a Ponzi scheme,
Mm.
and you know, in a lot of ways, your school does not do this, but you know, you're not looking for that testing money all the time. In
No.
some places, some places
Yeah.
are,
Exactly.
and not to throw shade on other martial arts, but that's what happened in some other traditional martial
Hmm.
arts is it got to the point it's like, well, people are willing to pay for $75 for a testing or a stripe. We're just going to
Hmm.
up the number of belts and a
Hmm.
lot more testing.
Hmm.
So even though time and rank from our initial white to black
Hmm.
is the same, but we got 15 more colors in there
Right. Right.
just so we can hit you with you know way more things. How do you feel about that?
Well, one of the things that I always think about is jujitsu. You know, Brazilian jiu-jitsu has never been as good at squeezing the money out of people as some other martial arts have just over time in the past anyway.
Right.
For us, we don't like charge for stripes, on
Yeah.
the belt. There's a belt promotion when you get your belt and thing, and that goes to the association stuff when we
Hmm.
do that. But that's kind of recognizing your belt. Not I know people kind of do it different, but I think things change. Zahabi was talking about that he thought that if people trained the way that we used to train, they wouldn't be training because times change.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, back what you've been through and what I've been through and the stuff we've done in the past.
Hmm.
We used to hit the ground a lot, and we got beat up a lot and stuff like that. And now people are just don't embrace that as much. So I tell my folks, and you've heard me say it. I said I did it so that hopefully you won't have to do all of it. You don't have to. I don't want you to be trained unintelligently.
Right.
And I think we trained a lot. We kind of were unintelligent in some of our training in the past.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Ego was
Yeah.
like, oh, sure. I
Yeah.
mean, throw me another 75 times, and
Well,
stuff like that.
as far as belt promotions go, as anxiety and everything like that, is as far as ego does play a large part of it, or maybe lack of.
Hmm.
As far as
Oh, yeah.
lack of ego can go, is sometimes we get in that psychosis. I know I do. Is no matter how good you are, you just start questioning yourself, and you get that anxiety of what other people expect of you.
Right.
And I'm not even talking about your instructor. It's just that it's it's a very ego driven sport
Yeah.
defense, and from school to school, and it's like what's the first thing you hear? It's like that person's a such and such, or this and that. And I wish it wasn't that
Right.
way, but I think that drives ego. I
Right.
think people are afraid to progress because they're afraid of what other people are going to
Right.
say. I think that delves into the anxiety,
Hmm.
and
Right.
are you worthy enough? And I
But
know that's from my
Well, I
experience.
think from an instructor perspective, I think we kind of look at things differently. But Zahabi was saying, and of course this is a great point, but he was saying I would rather have a purple belt that's tapping out black belts than to have a black belt that gets tapped out repeatedly by blues or something
Right?
like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
I mean, you want your you want to err to the technical and proficiency side to things rather than just say, well, you've got your time in, here's your belt, that
Okay,
kind of
that's
thing.
a great question. What do you, as an instructor, um, I mean, obviously you have to gauge it per each individual because
Hmm.
we're not
Hmm.
all the same.
No.
And I mean, if you were going to lay down some criteria for you,
Hmm.
and for your students directly, um, to curb some of their anxiety, what would you let them know that you're looking for?
For us, we're not a huge competition school. So, we don't, competition is not something we make all our people do. It's not part of it's not on the list of stuff. Oh, you have to compete so many times at this rank or,
Hmm.
so many times a year. So I think we want people to be able to mix it up a little bit. That's what I always say.
Hmm.
You want, if something happens and, what the general criteria on things is this: a blue belt should be able to handle, let's say, an untrained person, on the street. I mean,
Hmm.
that's the way a blue belt should be able to, in a self defense situation,
Hmm.
regardless of almost what physical attribute they have. I'm saying giving up 50 pounds, they should be
Sure.
able to handle it. And that's if I think that's probably a pretty good standard.
When you say handle, I mean at least to defend themselves intelligently.
Yes, absolutely. Or I would think be able to get on top and reverse and things like that and
Right.
survive and not get beat up. I
Right.
think, and so you can kind of look at that and kind of see, how people react in situations and kind of tell, because we kind of roll with everybody at our school. Everybody kind of plays with everybody a little bit,
Sure.
so you can kind of see what people can do and you can kind of see what they can't. Some guys are not as technical as you would want them to be, but they can still handle themselves. I was thinking, when you start thinking about that next belt, then you start thinking, well, I'm going to do this. Am I ready? Am I ready? In our brain, we tend to we have a visualization of what that belt is. That belt is, there's somebody in the gym, right now, for you, if somebody say, of course, it'll be a while, but we have people that might be looking at brown belt one day. When they think of a brown belt right now, even though they may be 5 years away from it or
Hmm.
whatever, they're like, Chris Bolin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to be Chris Bolin when I get ready.
Hmm.
So there's that's what the human brain, I think, does. It has a picture of, like, I'm gonna be that. That's my goal,
Right.
and that's a good goal. I mean, I would be very happy if all my all my future brown belt candidate people were like you, because I mean, but you do the same thing because we're together, but we're always training instructors. That's why the way we teach
Hmm.
people, we're giving people a roadmap
Right.
of how to share information. And when you start to understand like that, I think getting better at jujitsu is sometimes about how you learn how to share the information. When you teach it, it makes you better, too.
As far as that goes, when the way your school is set up, there it's we have such a hodgepodge, if you will, of belt colors.
Right.
And so it's really hard to break up, you know, the whites to the blues to the purples and stuff like that. And
Well, we have small school, really. I
yeah,
mean, and
but and that's fine. I mean,
yeah.
because a lot of times, in my opinion, white belts are getting a lot of
Oh, they are.
extra
They are.
credits
Oh, they
before
are, dude.
before they're
Oh, yeah.
before
Sometimes
they're
it's above their pay grade, is what
yeah.
they would say. And sometimes they're not ready for it. I mean,
Exactly.
I mean,
But do you think that that adds to the anxiety when they're because it's hard to say, okay, we're going to take a white belt and they're going to do it's nothing but a white belt class and we're going to do nothing but get you ready for your blue. We don't particularly have that. I don't know if any school really has that. Maybe some do that are like big schools.
mhm,
But do you think that that adds to it because they feel like I know what I'm required to do,
mhm,
but I
mhm,
haven't had a lot of time in.
mhm,
Before I finish that, is I do believe that it's everybody's responsibility to look at what their requirements
mhm,
are
mhm.
and work on it. I don't believe that you should. I know I've never been this way. You can't just come to class and do an hour of class once a week, twice a week, and that's it. Even if you're not getting on the mats, you need to study, figure out
Mhm,
something.
mhm.
Figure out what your
Well, you're
requirements
running
are.
drills in your head, or you're running technical stuff in your head. We are
Yeah.
anyway all the time. But that's how we're looking at stuff through an instructor's eyes,
Hmm.
differently now. And
But
I
do you
mean,
think that that adds anxiety to them?
it
As
can. I
far as
mean,
the fact that
some people are
it's
like,
not.
dude, I don't know how you know all this stuff. But then you've got a finance guy in the class with you that I don't know how he does what he does. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just different things, different, but it's not magic. But it's interesting to me, we try to figure out how we share information and how we teach. And we're always trying to evolve ourselves to, technique. I know there's only so many submissions, but we're trying to evolve into better ways to teach the material always,
Hmm.
and trying to figure out what's working best and what people are enjoying and things like
Have
that.
you
But
figured that out yet?
it's going to always be changing. But I think that I mean, everybody has different goals of
Hmm.
what they want. You want them to have a good time and enjoy themselves, but you also got to put the work in, because at the end of the day, it's about improvement, and we should be, improving as we go down the line.
What do you? What's your biggest heartburn about knowing somebody's wanting to make that next level, but you don't feel that they're ready?
Um, I'll tell them. I'll just give them advice. I think we deal with everybody on a personal level. I think they'll come to you, they'll come to me, or if we kind of feel it coming on, we'll go to them. A lot of we've both done that. It's like,
Hmm.
see, you're getting close, So what do you? Like I said, I think this is what you need to work on. And they say, oh, I'm nowhere near close or something. When they start saying, I said, well, this is what you need to work on anyway. This is that you need to be thinking about this. You need to be playing your guard more. You need to be doing this, working, trying to round your game up in this one way. Because I mean, yeah, I mean, it's always better to be on top,
Hmm.
but you got to be able to get there if you start off on your back for whatever reason. That's the thing. So again, that goes into that proficiency. When we start looking at what we look at for belt promotion, it's basically three things, and I'll tell you what, kind of a little finer description of each one. We do attendance, attitude, and performance. Really, that's what it is. And attendance means they're coming to class on time. They're not just they're not rolling in like the last 30 minutes where it's just, and I know there's guys that just want to come in and roll. I mean,
Hmm.
we don't have a lot of that, but sometimes people, and I know it's their work and stuff, but you want people coming to class and being a constructive member of class. Um, Attitude, I mean, good to work with. I mean, are you a good partner? Or are you a bad partner?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
yin and yang of jujitsu, and again, we could do a whole talk on that, is to me, when you're learning technique, especially the first year and a half, is there's the movement of you doing it, and then there's the receiving of it, and you're getting that yin and yang of the technique. So you're learning like, well, crap, that's how that's supposed to feel.
Hmm.
Uh, I bet mine doesn't feel that way. So the synergy of those two things make your technique better. That's you have to have it done to you.
You could do a whole episode on the guys that are white belts that just shut everybody
Oh,
down when
uh,
during technique training. They just they're
uh,
like they forget the fact that you gotta go through through the movements. Yeah, you got to give it up, and it's not being fake. It's just you gotta understand where you're going from A to B.
right, right. I mean, I'm never. If you get that mindset where you're never going to be there, realistically, we should be able to slow our. What's the thing we tell people more than anything else? You need to slow down. You need to slow down a little bit because, like we talk about, jujitsu works best against a lot of energy. You've got somebody giving you a lot of energy. You try to divert that and use it.
Hmm.
And if you're doing a lot of force and a lot of speed and stuff like that, you're probably giving a lot of stuff up in that. And if it's not, that's amazing. If you're not doing that, that
Right,
means you need to work with tougher partners
right.
if that's the case. But you need to understand the jujitsu, or you're not doing jujitsu, you're just doing wrestling.
Right.
In that case. So you need to learn that stuff and work it. You just need to slow your game down where you can understand how the levers and everything work. Your body has to recognize it first. But when we were talking about performance, again, that's kind of what you're talking about. We look at the curriculum. We want to see and make sure that they know what you're talking about. So it's not just like they're beating everybody's brains out. The white belts are beating all the other white belts and they're tapping blue belts out on a regular basis. That's not that. You may say, okay, dude, show me a scissor sweep. Crickets. And I was like, so I mean, of course, that's not going to be the case because they know what a scissor sweep is. If you come to our school, you're going to know what a scissor sweep is. But you could ask for a move and they're just like, I don't know what you're talking about. And if it's not terminology based confusion,
Hmm.
you're not doing your job.
Right.
you
Well, I had
know?
a lot of terminology based confusion when I first
Oh
started
yeah.
training with you
Oh yeah.
from white to blue. because we'd call it other things in
Right.
other places.
Well, we used to
And
call it other things too.
yeah, then
And Eric has a whole, his terminology on certain things.
it's completely
Yeah,
different.
like his Americana is a V arm,
Yeah,
and stuff. I mean, he has names for everything, but the terminology. So we just use all of them usually. We'll say this and this is, when we're teaching it, we'll call it all the different names, not to confuse everybody, but it's this.
yeah, right.
But we're here to educate too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Taking the next step, what about the anxiety of once you've received a promotion?
Okay. Uh, Mr. Brown Belt, to me, that's a hard belt because it's like you got a target on your back as a brown belt because
Right.
they expect you to be doing stuff like expect you to be performing almost like a black belt,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's going to try to test you. They want
Mm-hmm.
to see what they got against you.
Well, yes, that way they can say that they beat a brown belt.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
especially if they're
right,
in the lower ranks,
right,
and then of course the higher ranks want to just see if you're up to snuff.
right,
So
right.
you do
Yeah,
have.
it's a tough place.
It is a tough
But
place.
that's why you cut your teeth at that. You've cut your teeth already. But I mean, because you've been through a lot. Your experience, you have vast experience of different things. But a lot of people, it's that progression through when they get to be brown, they say, well, this is tough. Of course, purple for some people
It was tough.
is
Yeah.
tough too.
Yeah.
I mean, and it is, but it's just, it depends on the person,
Mhm.
but as you get, the more difficulty you have, the more experience you get, which the better you get, and you learn how to deal with those situations. And it's not the same. That way, you can always deal with when somebody's really bowing up on you and trying to work you over.
Yeah.
You're expecting that. And
Well, I know when it seems like every rank that I've got promoted through, I've had the anxiety of the new belt. The anxiety of, am I good enough to put this, ranking on? When you go to that thing, especially when you go to different schools, because
right,
you get
yeah,
eyed up and all that
oh
stuff, and
yeah,
everybody,
right,
no matter what your rank is, how long you've been on, and unless they've seen that you've had it on for a while,
hmm
it's got a
hmm
little wear and tear on it.
right.
Then
Well, it doesn't matter then.
yeah.
I'm going
But
to tell you. No, I mean, you hope that you go to places and they're respectful of you
mhm,
anyway. I mean, especially when you're a senior statesman.
mhm,
When you're 55 years old or whatever, it's like, but you go in there and you show respect to them. I think it's how you start your role. But then
mhm.
you'll have guys that just think they can do anything to you they want because you're a black belt and you should be able to
Defend yourself.
defend yourself, which is fine. You can, but that's a level of energy that you're going to have to respond to.
Right. And you got to give it back to them and let
Oh,
them
that's
know.
what I'm saying. You
Yeah.
got to, it's just like that. It's like all of a sudden everything was fine, boom, 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 and then it's on.
Yeah.
And
When
so
you
you have to do that. And then usually after you tap them about 3 times, then everything kind of settles down a
settles
little
down,
bit. Right.
kind of you go from
Right.
the boiling water to the simmering.
Right. And you shut them down a little bit.
Right.
So yeah, so that's something that you end up, kind of working through. But there's that thing about growing into your belt too.
Mm.
It's like some people are like, yeah, they're there, but everybody has to grow into your belt. You have to grow into your skin kind of
Right.
with that.
Do you get that from a lot of your students when, like, after you've promoted them? Any conversations down the road?
Well, some people are like, man, it usually, all of them, it seems like always want it to, till they start going towards their second stripe. It takes them to get to their second stripe almost before they're like, yeah, I'm feeling okay. But I think that's just the way it is. I think that's just a matter of just being nobody performs to the level that they really want to.
I agree with that. I think that I think it's tough to meet your own
Mhm.
criteria.
Mhm.
I think we're our worst critics.
Oh, that's true.
And I think that I'll never be as good as I think I want to be.
Oh no.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's what but we're always, I'll never know everything I want to know. I mean, or what, I will never be proficient to the level that I want to be. I mean, I've seen what guys can do,
Hmm.
and I know with my physical limitations that I now, because of just, again, as we talk about those first 25 years of our training or
Hmm.
30 years of our training, whatever, we wish we learned how we should have done things. Now we look back on it and say, I should have been a little smarter about when I trained. I probably would be in a little bit better shape now. I wouldn't be as
A little
have
fewer,
these
fewer
nagging.
energy.
Yeah. And so when you start looking at that, you're just trying to trying to just find where you are on everything. I'm just always trying to get better. I mean, I'm a constant in search of trying to make a better mousetrap, is what I say.
Right. Well, what do you do to try to make the whole experience best for your students? What do you know? This is, and I ask that question for the people that are listening that may be coach themselves or at a different location or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Is when you go in rank, each rank's supposed to be special, and you're supposed to I don't know, you're supposed to feel
Mm-hmm.
invigorated. Even if
Right.
you have anxiety, you're supposed
Right.
to feel invigorated that I made to that next level. And I think that's, when they talk about I'm trying to get off on a big tangent, but they talk about the, you got X number of people that are white to blue
Mm-hmm.
and then they disappear and then you got X number of people, blah, blah. As a coach, as an
Mm-hmm.
instructor, um, what is the best way do you think to make that without giving a belt away?
Mm-hmm.
What is the best way to keep people invigorated and make each ranking special to them?
Well, I think the culture of your school. I think if everybody is part of a common unit, I think a lot of times that keeps everybody in, and everybody's really trying to raise everybody else up. And really, that's one of the big things about jujitsu, and I think that's one of the reasons why people like it, is everybody's working together towards something. If you there's such a good community, people are trying to help everybody else out. And then it even moves off the mat, and people outside, it's like, oh, you develop relationships and stuff. But I think just that community, because that's almost what you need. It's almost like a peer pressure group to a certain degree to keep you kind of engaged on it, because it's easy. There's so many things out there to distract you, and family problems and different things that are just like that. You really, I think you look at you and you say, hey, they want to be like you. You look at the higher belts. The higher belt folks need to be a good example um, on the mat. I know sometimes there's a lot of stuff off the mat that kind of gets in the way of some things, but you should try to live your life as balanced as possible. Balance is impossible, but you try to balance it out. They look at that next thing and they think, wow, in another 2 years, maybe I can be there, where it is. So I think that's that. We have a very personal relationship with everybody.
Hmm.
So our communication, everybody knows, you can come in and we can talk about it. And we do a lot of times we'll say, hey, what does everybody need to work on tonight? We have stuff we've got set down, but we'll be like, hey, where do we need to be? What do you guys need to be? What do you think we need to be hitting on? As
Hmm.
long as it's still covering the stuff that we need to, what we think. But sometimes the class will be like, hey, could we do a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that? So you have to kind of cater to your group a little bit. Um, and we have a curriculum, but also you've also as a good instructor, you need to be able to be adaptive to whatever. But we just communicate. I mean, it's the secret of everything. Communicate with your people. Try to analyze. Sometimes they don't know how to ask you what they need to.
Yeah.
What do they need to do? Hey, coach, what do I need to be working on? Well, this is what you need to be working on. That's why when we get to see guys and girls roll, you can see what they need to be working on. Sometimes it's very simple stuff,
Hmm.
and it comes across as rocket science when you're trying to explain it to them. But sometimes it's just as simple as, hey, dude, you need to get on your side more.
Yeah.
And then that's going to fix a big problem, you know. But yeah, I think communication with everybody. I mean, there's always a level of communication with somebody that's getting close to a belt promotion. And a lot of times they'll come up to you. I know you've done it on too many times to count. Hey, Coach Chris, can you help me with this? And you'll be like, you'll hang around after class and work with guys on stuff and things, or before class, you'll come
Hmm.
in and I'll be looking over there, and you'll be all the way up to the, all right, everybody line up, But everybody is such an open door of information at our school. We don't keep anything from anybody.
Hmm.
If you want to see something crazy, hey, you just ask for it. We'll show it to you.
Yeah. We'll figure it
You may
out.
not
Right?
understand it,
Yeah.
but I mean, that's it. Sometimes um, information people learn different ways, and it's amazing. You can show a technique, and then and you'll say, "Hey guys, this is important. Don't forget to do this." And then you go around and half the class isn't doing what you just said is the most important part. So people learn differently.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, that's kind of it. I think anxiety in this day and time, everybody has anxiety over everything. But but it's strange to have anxiety about promotions. You know, sometimes it's like you think you worry about other things, but I think that's healthy because that means that you're being kind of true to yourself and thinking, am I ready? And the coach should be able to explain to you, hey, this is why I think you're ready. Um, or you need to work a little bit on this, and we're going to see what we can do, you know, to see if we can fix it. But I think that's one of the things about jujitsu that is different than, like I said, a lot of other martial arts stuff. It's just you can, because the rolling lets you see. Like I said, the rolling does not lie. You can tell where people are, multiple levels.
That is
stuff.
fact.
That is fact.
That
And
is
if you're
fact.
beating everybody's brains out, and you know, you need to say, hey, are you at the right place? You
Right,
know,
right.
you should be challenged in class. That's the thing. And also never think that the people that you're rolling with are giving you everything they've got either. I think, you know, like I said, everybody, a lot of times we put the damper on stuff because you want people could never learn. You know?
Right, if you're just
Yeah.
completely shutting them down
Right,
at all
right.
times.
You know, I mean, that's why we let them start on our side control. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, like I said, just to kind of let them get some time on top to where they can kind of work some stuff and things like that. But anyway, that's kind of it. Like I said, I think we've determined that anxiety is kind of healthy to a certain degree, at least when it comes to jujitsu, because
And
it
fight
keeps you
through
honest.
it. And fight through it.
Absolutely. Well, that's part of the challenge, right?
Yeah.
The anxiety we've got to overcome, because there's anxiety in everything. You're worried about your job, you're worried about your bills, and you know, why should you worry about your jujitsu? Just show up and do it, and
Yeah.
and just and let it go.
And when you break through, that's the proof that you
Bam.
deserve it.
Bam, and then you'll be like, that feels good.
Yeah.
You know, and but yeah, I think it's just a natural thing. Um, like I said, sometimes people just don't ever worry about it. You know, I mean, that's the guys that don't ever worry about it. It's just like, then they're like, huh. And then when they get it, they worry about it because, golly, now I've got to, you know, it's like the anxiety of, oh, I just got promoted and I wasn't even expecting that kind of stuff. So there's anxiety on both ends.
Yeah.
But guys, thanks for listening. Coach Chris, thank you for joining me today.
I enjoyed it.
And kind of like us on like us on Facebook. We've got a Facebook page coming out.
Okay.
So, and we're on several of the formats. So please continue to listen and recommend us to a friend if you will.
Absolutely. And please subscribe to Chris's YouTube page so that he can keep informed and see and track how everybody's coming in and leave messages.
Yes. Hey, give us some good topics that you want to hear about. I mean, that's why we're here, and maybe we can give some good food for thought.
Absolutely.
We don't have all the right answers, but maybe we could come up with something.
That's right.
All right, guys. Thanks a bunch.